Cool. I'm really excited to be here with Joe because he's a celebrity. So if you like,
B-rated.
And he's definitely out-traveled anyone in this room. So it's 150,000 miles that you've traveled so far this year?
This year, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, that's good.
What kind of airline status do you have?
I'm a United guy.
Okay.
So 1K on United is who I fly right now.
Okay, that's a pretty big deal. Awesome. So Joe's actually the co-founder of Afar Media. And Afar is a multi-platform consumer media company that's 100% focused on travel. And if you haven't checked out Afar, you really need to because the content is awesome. If you're looking to plan a trip or just get some insights into what you should be doing with your free time, Joe's definitely got some suggestions there.
Thank you.
So. What we're going to talk about today is sort of the new age of travel, and we're going to kick it off. Joe's going to set us up for our panelists who are coming later, but what really excites you about the new age of travel right now? And there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there really is a lot going on, and it's an exciting time in a lot of ways. I mean, if you look at the travel industry, according to, you can cut the numbers different ways, but it's basically the 7th largest industry in the world. It's the 3rd fastest growing. More people are traveling today now more than ever before. The airline industry says that air traffic will double in the next 20 years. So it's really, just a really big industry. Combine that with the fact that there's been a really dramatic shift, I think, in the last 10 years, especially when we launched in 2009, where people are starting to really pick experiences over things. And so they're really identifying with the role that experience plays in their life. And Afar's mission has always been to inspire, guide, and enable people to have deeper, richer, and more fulfilling travel experiences because we believe that that leads to a deeper, richer, more fulfilling life. So that's a really good thing. More people are traveling. And then the other thing that we see is, a lot of the dollars in travel are really focused at the bottom of the funnel. I mean, if you just look at Expedia, they spend over $3 to $4 billion on marketing a year because that's where all of the dollars are. So a lot of brands are really focused right now on last click attribution. But as we know, travel isn't a linear thing. I mean, it takes someone 20 to 30 websites to finally figure out to pull out their wallet and start booking travel. And so we're seeing right now, just in the technology space, partners like Adara, Sojourn, Transparency, Curacity are just some of the few examples that are helping show that last click attribution isn't the only attribution. And there's really amazing content creators, publishers, high quality content creators that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and they're not getting really any share of the dollars. Expedia takes 20 to 30% commissions on everything they book. A publisher doesn't get any of those dollars. So I think in today's world, what we're going to see is a redistribution of those dollars higher up in the funnel. Marketers will get more confidence to know that the dollars that they're placing higher up are actually doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, which is interesting because we have a big content practice at Oath too, and in the travel vertical, there has always been a really high concentration of that performance type of campaign. So now you're seeing a little bit of a shift in spending higher in the funnel, but does it look like a funnel anymore, or is it?
I mean, there is. I think the way that we think about it is inspiration to action.
Okay. Cool.
So that's where we start. We can't compete against the Pricelines and Expedias of the world. It's pretty hard to do with a $3 billion marketing budget. But what we get to do is we get to start, and where publishers get to start is and folks that create content gets to start up higher. So we get to talk to travelers before they even know where they want to go or how they're going to get there. And the other amazing thing about travel is it's so lucrative. I mean, you're not talking about selling, $10 razors. You're talking about selling $10,000 trips. So there's just a lot of money there that makes it a really interesting thing. And to your example, I mean, we've seen a huge explosion in our business. We have a magazine, a digital practice event. The magazine makes up today only about 30% of our revenue. So what we've seen an explosion on is this idea of custom content, where we're creating content for brands like Holland America, or if you're a Chase customer and you go onto their Ultimate Rewards page, you'll see all of the travel content that's created there is created by a FAR. So the content has become a huge part of what we do for other brands.
So the Chase example is interesting too, because you can see that brands do want to align with this type of travel content because it really is speaking to consumers. And we talked a little bit this week about the concept of millennial, but also millennially minded, right? Which is not related to age. So millennials is a specific age group and a bracket generation-wise, but there's a lot of travelers now who are sort of in this like millennial mindset, regardless of if they're 75 or 35, right? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that we think about it is it all starts with a psychographic. It starts with a set of values, and for us, that's are you curious? So, FAR speaks to discerning global citizen travelers. These are basically the top 25% of travelers. They travel 20 times a year. They stay 30 nights on average in a hotel, so on and so forth.
Do they have jobs?
Well, and half of it's business, half of it's pleasure. A lot of what we see in today's world is, I might have a business trip to Hong Kong, but I've gone all that way. I'm going to stay a couple extra days.
Yeah, for sure.
And so there's a nice mix there. But, it really does start with a psychographic and a set of values. And that's really how, whenever we're creating content, whenever we're thinking about a strategy, we're talking to folks who are curious about the world, they're open-minded, they're willing to get outside their comfort zone and stretch themselves.
Yeah.
And that approach has allowed us to attract this great audience.
And so are values important in terms of being aligned with a brand? As a millennial or millennial-minded traveler, I care about values. I care about brands who have specific values?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're seeing a lot of that. I mean, purpose-driven brands stand out more.
Yep.
When brands stand for something and champion something that they truly believe in, that makes an impact. And you see that consumers align, especially today's world, are aligning with that more.
Yeah, absolutely. It just makes them want to patronize a
and they feel like, I think, Airbnb has said it well, this idea of this sense of belonging. People want to belong, and they want to feel a part of something, and they want to feel like they're contributing to something greater than themselves at some level.
Sure.
And so I think brands are really understanding that in today's world, and they're putting a flag in the ground around the things that they really believe in.
So let's talk about air travel for a minute. It's going to increase dramatically. How's that going to work? I mean, LaGuardia is an absolute nightmare as it is. I hear that's going to get better in 2 or 3 years.
It's
right?
coming along.
So how do we sort of absorb that level of traffic? How does the airline industry absorb that, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think, there's so many places that we've never even heard of that have populations of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million. I think technology in aviation is really fascinating. I mean, we're able, because of the advances with like the 787 Dreamliner or the Airbus A350, we're able to connect cities that have never been connected before. I mean, if you just saw this week, like Air China is announcing new launches into Sichuan province of cities that I frankly hadn't really heard of,
right.
And so we're able to connect. I mean, I think what you see with some of the low-cost carriers is really fascinating. Like Norwegian Airlines has come on in a really huge way. They're connecting cities that have never been connected directly before.
Yeah.
So I think it really allows travelers to be dispersed more evenly. And I think the other thing too, I mean, one of the fascinating things that we've seen is, we live in a world where there's always a crisis somewhere, either man-made, climate change, all of these different things. And when we first launched, I mean, I think what we first saw was people would just stop traveling. If there was a disaster, they'd freak out and stop. Mm-hmm. Now what they do is they'll just shift their plans.
Yeah.
So, okay, well maybe we won't go to Paris this summer, but we'll go to New Zealand.
Right.
And so it's
how does that adjust like domestic versus international travel as well? Have you seen a change over the past year of people traveling more domestically, or not necessarily?
I mean, at the mass levels, I think travel's up in all different sectors. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing lift happening internationally. The U.S., quite frankly, has been hit a little harder in the last 12 months just because of the political climate. Visit California said that within 2 months of the election, they saw 35% of their travelers canceled trips from Mexico. Wow. 35% of Mexican travelers canceled trips to California. Yeah. Cost them billions of dollars. But what did they do? They went to Canada. Canada eased visa restrictions. So countries are getting smarter about that.
That's great to know. So in this crowd, I think there's a lot of people who are hyper connected on a daily basis. It's getting harder and harder to take a trip and get out and actually, not get calls, texts, emails, snaps, hip chats, slacks from your boss or the people you work with. If we want to get out and totally unplug and take an actual real vacation, what is your number one recommendation to us for doing so?
Yeah, you do see this. You see this, Skift covered this in their global forum, the state of perma-anxiety. We're coming out soon with an issue on being unplugged.
Because it used to be you could go abroad and no one could get a hold of you because you were in Europe and your phone didn't work, right? But that is not a thing anymore.
Airplane mode. Airplane mode. There's lots of great ways to unplug. I think right now, just given what's going on in Napa, in Houston, in Florida, in the Caribbean, what we really recommend is going to places that really rely on tourism dollars. I think media has a tendency to sensationalize. So if you see fires burning in Napa and Sonoma, you think that the entire Napa and Sonoma counties are completely burned down. That's not the case. So being able to go to places where those dollars really matter is super important. So I'd say that's one thing to think about. Yep. St. Bart's is not completely destroyed. You should go to St. Bart's. So Puerto Rico, same thing. So that's one thing. Personally, for me, I'm doing something actually a little bit extreme next month. I've never done this, but and we'll see how this goes. But I'm doing a 10-day silent meditation retreat in Western Massachusetts.
Just right over here.
I've never gone a day without talking, so I don't know how this is gonna go, but that's the reaction that I just heard from you guys is the same reaction that everybody has.
And we just met you.
Yeah, exactly. So stay tuned. I'll let you know how it goes.
Awesome. Okay, so you'll let us know about silent meditation, and in the meantime, we should consider traveling to the places that have been most hard hit recently, just as a show of support.
I think so.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.